Okay, so here is a second attempt. I want to talk a little bit about something that would be interesting for young people and, well, also not so young people, people that are sort of choosing their careers, choosing where they're going to go, and thinking about, well, do I fit in with this? Am I successful? Am I satisfied? And this is what I call the difference between Yang disciplines and Jin disciplines. And I'm using here Jin Yang in a completely popular culture way. I do not know what is behind this philosophically, spiritually, and that I don't need it. I just need these as the sort of things that you already know about in popular culture, and that they will stand for something that you will immediately identify, and that will serve me as a metaphor to give you this story. Now, so Yang is everything that's active, powerful, hot, and aggressive. Jin is the passive, the soft, the cooler side, and so forth, right? And then knowing this, you can more or less classify the disciplines you are studying or disciplines you're working on as Yang or Jing. And then this is how I will give you the contrast. Now, Yang would be something like engineering, surgery, uh, not, no, being able to put electricity wiring in the house, that sort of thing. Jin, international relations, philosophy, ethics, to a large extent, law. Though law is a little bit closer to the middle, it's still a Jin discipline. Well, so there you have this contrast between Yan and Jin. Now, what I'm going to tell you is that ideally, no, you probably want the balance of both. The ideal would be to have that your discipline should cover sufficiently well both yang aspects and yin aspects, because that will be more satisfying and that will lead to a more even development of your personality and a stronger degree of career satisfaction. However, uh, that will probably not happen unless you yourself look for it and you yourself build it. Now, the reality is that you will be either studying a Yang discipline or you will be studying a Yin discipline. You will be either studying computer science or you will be studying European studies. And here's the thing, what you're going to lose, what you're going to feel that you lose if you go one of these paths is you'll lose something in either one. But what you will feel that you lose, no, is much weightier, much more difficult if you take the Jin path. So essentially, here's what's going to happen. Now, so Yang disciplines are hard skills, and that means that I can put you right there on the spot and say, well, can you solve this equation? Either you can or you can't, and then it's immediately visible whether you can or you can't. Can you put the electrical wiring on this house? Not because I'm just saying this is not just no science and stuff. It's also practical stuff. Can you put the electrical wiring on this house? Well, either you can put it or you cannot put it. Can you fix this toilet that got stuck the plumbing? Either you can do it or you can't do it. Now, can you perform this surgery? Especially if it's we're not talking about the cutting edge surgeries that are just getting on the edge, but this is a routine surgery. Can you perform it? Do you know the steps and are you technically competent to do it? Either you can or you cannot, and you know it in the spot. That is hard skills. The skills of Yang disciplines are demonstrable. They're active. They have this immediate output. Jin disciplines, by contrast, well, say, well, do you know international relations? Do you know European studies? Ha! How do I show it? Uh, well, no, I can probably pass a test on it. No, but nobody's gonna sit you there for a test and give you sort of this artificial test. And the reality of it is that test for something like European studies or for philosophy, for ethics, whatever. It's a very imprecise instrument. And here's essentially the point: you can know a lot of it and be hard to tell apart whether you really know a lot of it or whether you're a bullshitter. Essentially, in soft skills, it's skills that it's possible to bullshit your way into making it appear that you have a knowledge that you do not necessarily have. Or no, bullshitting. That's sort of a very negative term. Let's say something different. Uh, Soft skills is one in which even if you have not studied them, common sense will take you a very long way. Now, let's say I have you and I say, okay, I'm gonna put you, in a mechanical engineering firm. The first day of the job, you have to design this bridge or this turbine or whatever. You're gonna say, well, I don't even know how to turn on the computer for this sort of thing. I don't even know what thing to load. Contrast, I say, okay, well, I pick you up from the street and I say, well, I'm gonna put you in an ethics board. You're gonna have to tell me, whether this was ethical behavior or unethical behavior. Well, you have not studied Kant, Bentham, Mill, and the new ones, the Parfits and the so forth. You might not even know these people are, but you might be able, to give pretty reasonable answers. In fact, you might be able to give better answers than the people that have studied ethics for 4 years or for 5 years. Because Jin disciplines are like this. Jin disciplines do not build up a very testable skill. They just enrich your perception, enrich your common sense, enrich the depth that's already there. But they don't give you this sort of yes no difference between the person that knows the skills and that doesn't know the skill. So they're very hard to test. And what that means for a person studying this, I'm not thinking in their social terms. I'm just thinking in individual terms. What that means for you as a student of a hard discipline versus a student of a soft discipline, for your self-esteem and for you yourself going into the labor market, that if you're a student of a hard discipline, you can basically tell your employer, you want somebody that wants to do this, I can do this. You want to set yourself apart? Well, then you learn how to do this new thing that is more in demand, that is more difficult than the other things that have been done. Okay, so say, well, people need engineers. Okay, well, I'm an engineer. Oh, I want to set myself apart. I want to be an engineer that knows how to do electricity for hospitals. Apparently, that's very tricky. It needs lots of special shielding. Well, now I am the one that knows that, and I set myself apart from the rest. So with this demonstrable hard skills. Now with Jin skills, no, that's just not just something that you cannot do. Well, you can keep learning softer skills. You can keep learning Jin skills, and your ability to go and show that you know them. No, there's only so much words that you can put in your mouth at the same time. You can talk about, well, the isms and the 19th century and the 18th century and so forth. Well, there's a time limit for you to be able to communicate your skill level to other people, and it's gonna be hard within that time limit to distinguish yourself from the bullshitter, or to just distinguish yourself from a person with very good common sense, or a person with very good common sense might tell you, no, I don't really need this person. So that is an important contrast that you see right there, and that has it's and its most negative manifestation. Let's say its most degenerate manifestation. The worst that can happen that is that if you are a soft skill person, you end up being dominated by rhetoric, personality, and politics, and sort of this halo effects and horn effects that surround people. So what do I mean by that, right? So in psychology, they talk about some people that just carry this positive halo around them, and everybody says, no, what they do is wonderful. Not so much because what they do is wonderful, but because they transmit personally that they're so in charge and they know what they're doing, and then and or vice versa. People that have to they well, at least person called the halo is the positive, the horn is the negative. People that know when they start talking, even if it's something reasonable, people will perceive it as nonsense because it comes from this person that we have already maligned, or that we have sort of this bias, prejudice against. If you work in the soft skills, that's pretty much something that you cannot overcome. No, because there's no demonstrable knowledge that you can say, well yeah, but look, this is what it is. No, this is how Kant paved the way for the romantic reaction. It was really Kant that did so. How dare you? Kant is a figure of the Enlightenment. I know. I don't know either way. I don't want to have an opinion either way. But the point is, that something like "How dare you" is very effective in a yin setting. Now, if I say, well, how dare you? Do you want to make solve this equation? Well, see, I solved it. No amount of posturing, of rhetorical posturing, will change the fact that the numbers come out right. Rhetorical posturing, however, will completely sink the thesis of a person that comes with a softer skill, if that person is not being able to if it's in a politically hostile environment, in a socially hostile environment, if the person does not get their foot in the door, that can be completely sunk. Can be completely sunk. No, which is why. Let me which so in the ultimate scenario, no, that degenerates in this sort of no, this sort of Michelin star game, or sort of cooking show, sort of Gordon Ramsay cooking show, which is a lot of fun. No, but no, because but you might see happen. Okay, so surely some people cook terrible, but it might also happen, and because I really suspect it. No, that here the chef cooks a pretty reasonable dish, but then Gordon Ramsay says, "This is complete crap. This is terrible. What are you, a donkey?" And no, it's a lot of fun to see that. But the reality is that the dish might be all right. And just know the halo of being Gordon Ramsay and putting all this sort of fancy critique of the dish. No, that makes everybody convinced that the dish must have been very bad. But it might have been all right. And then because it's sort of the inability to test the skill, lends itself to it being turned out into some sort of popularity contest, which is very damaging for the soul, because a lot of people will do very well, but the reason they do very well might not be that that their ideas are wonderful and perfect, but because they are in the right place in the social network. And a lot of people will do very badly, not because their ideas are terrible, because they're in a bad place in the social network. One is in the Gordon Ramsay restaurant, and another one is in this restaurant that already has the halo that it's failing. And this, we cannot know how much does it happen versus fair judgment, but I'm sure it happens a lot, and this is a real liability for people working in yin disciplines. So I will give you an anecdote that has a lot to do with this point. So when I was in the United States, I don't know, I was doing a master's, and that was fine. It was very good. I enjoyed it. But then I had always this ambition to go and do a PhD. I felt it as a vocation, not as something that I thought would take me somewhere that I wanted to go, but I just wanted to do it in itself. And then I remember asking a professor about this, and then the professor said, if you don't get into one of the top 5 schools, don't do it, because it's pointless. Now, had I understood this, so here's what I understood then. I understood I should try to get into one of the top 5 schools, and since what I really want is a PhD and not necessarily a teaching career, I want it for myself. Well, we can also be top 10 or something like that. But I really need to get into a top school. That's what I understood. Here's what I should have understood. Now, if I had been intelligent and wise, I should have understood what's going on. Now, so do you think that if you have a med school that's not a medical degree, that's not from a top 5 schools, you cannot get nothing done with it? You cannot get employed. You cannot save people's lives. Do you think that if you have an engineering degree from let's say ordinary ex-state university in the United States, no, you cannot get employed, building bridges or fixing the asphalt or whatever thing civil engineers do? Well, of course you can. No, and then here's what's going on. The PhD in academia is the ultimate Jin discipline. It's the ultimate Jin dimension. And because as I said, the knowledge that you have is not demonstrable, and there's a limit to your talking, and that's the only thing you have, your talk, which is you have to compare it with the talk of other people, and there's only so much words that you can put. You cannot do anything extra to differentiate yourself. All differentiation goes to ceremony, to branding, goes to all these aesthetic aspects. And then it is just true. Now, that your prima facie credibility is that you have a PhD that says University of Chicago behind it, or a PhD that says Yale behind it, or a PhD that says Princeton behind it. And in this, I don't want to say, oh, no, but then do you mean something negative about Princeton, Yale? Oh, those fantastic schools, and you should go there if you can in a heartbeat. What I mean to say is that that's not a good sign. Because you're living in a situation where the value is created. Here's one way to put it. I heard it. I don't know who said this, but you're living in a situation where the value is created by the admissions office and the communications department, and no, by the path, by other people, and not by you. No, what you do is perceived as valuable because you have that logo behind it. It might be valuable. I don't know, but the value is not something that you're creating, and I don't think that's healthy. So all this long story is say, well, here there's the Yang disciplines, there's the Jing disciplines. Jing disciplines have the potential to make you very unhappy because of all these limitations in your ability to say, well, I want to do better, I want to do more. You know what? You can't. You really can't. Or not in a way that's contrastable, not then in a way that's verifiable. Okay, so here is what I would say. No, are gym disciplines unimportant? No, they are quite important. If you have a Yang discipline, no, you won't face any of these problems. But there will be a limit, let's say, for harder problems. What it will say, well, I wish I had more context. I wish I had more historical understanding. I wish I could reflect deeper. Now, if you have routine problems, you might not need this. But if you have those really big problems, and then the soft disciplines might give you the edge. Or if you are in a situation where you say the challenge ultimately is not technical, there's also human challenge, there's also a communication challenge, then again, the gym disciplines might give you the edge. For example, writing skills. So writing skills are skills that are one of these skills that is not contrastable. No, everybody can write, and by and large, everybody can write, and they can say, well, what can you do? I can write. So can everybody else. But the thing is that writing is an art, and being a really, really good writer, being a really good communicator, is something that's very difficult, and that when you have it, can make you much more powerful. So even if it's hard to contrast, if you are already in the right place, good writing, good communication will make a difference. What they don't do is help you get to the right place. Because then you put in your CV and I write. So does pretty much everybody else. So what I'm saying is not that there's no room for this. What I'm saying is that there's just this danger that if you just have this, you work in a very ego ceremony brand driven environment that's not healthy for you or for anybody. So at least what I would suggest is spread yourself out. Seek that balance. If you have this predominantly Yin background, seek that balance and build a few Yang skills that will help you balance out and give you maybe you like my fried chicken or you don't like my fried chicken, but I can also put the electrical wiring on the house. So no, I'm not completely dependent on the opinion of others for how I perceive the worth of my own work. So that's one thing I would suggest. And then, of course, if you are in a Yang discipline from the start, you don't face these problems. But I do think it's still valuable to take a look at what's happening on the other side. Because let's say if you start to face challenges that are not run of the mill, what might make the difference between 3 or 5 competent people that do the hard skills very well, what might make the difference is which one's able to understand the situation in human terms, which is able to communicate it, and that ends up being valuable too. But in a way, this is sort of the plea is a plea, ultimately a plea for balance, but also something that if you work in a Jing discipline, and if you're experiencing sort of this burnout, where there's like nothing that you can do that can think of. Let's go back to the cooking show. There's this point in which the chef says, I will obey Gordon Ramsay. I will cook like he wants, and he starts putting like dish after dish after dish and after dish, and they're all the same result. You donkey, how would you do this? If you end up in that area, I say, well, maybe one thing to think about is whether you're really doing things wrong, or if whether you are missing something at the ceremonial, language, communication level. And because there's a point where that can be grinding, and you don't want to find yourself in that point. So that's an idea.